Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm going to be talking today with Caitlyn from KidStar Nutrients. That's a vitamin company here in Canada that I recommend to a lot of clients and a lot of just folks that I encounter because they have really clean ingredients and they use a lot of really absorbable forms of vitamins and minerals. So she wanted to have a chat today about how certain vitamins and minerals can impact behavior, and I see she's right there. There we go. And here, maybe. Oh, there we go.
Wonderful. I know. I was like, it's happening. It just hadn't shown up yet. So
yeah, I know. There's always a delay with Instagram. I find like right at the end of every live I do, like a bunch of people it'll say like, wait, all of your followers now know that this is happening. I'm like, why didn't you notify them 15 minutes ago?
I agree.
Well, nothing's perfect.
But this is awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. This is, I love talking about supplements. So
yeah, me too. So it's always good to partner up with someone to make it a bit less like talking at people. It's more like a conversation. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I was actually looking through your feed last night for more of all your tips, and every single one I was like, yes, it's so true. It's so true. And I'm like, everyone needs to read this one. So
I know.
Everybody out there, make sure you're following both of us because there's lots of great advice.
Yeah. And I do recommend your stuff a lot because it's clean, right? And it's also in Canada, it's easily available. And I think you ship to the US as well, right? You have the like Vitamart and
yes.
Planet that ships down. Yeah, because I had a client the other day telling me they shipped it via, I don't know how she got it shipped, but it was like an additional cost of the vitamins to get them shipped because she was one of the distributors. And I was like, no, don't do that. You can go to like, I think it was Vitamart and Healthy Planet. There's one other one.
Yes, VitaSave, Healthy Planet, and Vitamart all have really good US shipping.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
So what did you want to talk about first?
I really want to talk about the fact that with kids with all ranges, how supplements do fit into their lives, and how we could be seeing behaviors or nutrient deficiency behaviors that also may be impacting children who also have behavioral differences. So we want to remember that we could solve some of the problems with the nutrient deficiencies, and then you have that less to deal with when you're doing your day-to-day lives.
Yeah, it's true. I find like with ADHD in particular, and just in general with kids these days, that one is the one that's overlooked a lot, which you guys are always like posting about, is iron, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like because so many kids are eating so much like grains and dairy. It's like grilled cheeses and pizza and just like those easy mac and cheese type dinners, and they're all low in iron, and they all interfere with iron because milk, high calcium things interfere with iron absorption, right? So I think I'm just going to turn my light down. I realize I look like I'm on some kind of crazy.
You look wonderful. Don't worry.
I was a little overexposed there. But yeah, so I'm finding a lot of people, I look through what they've been eating for the past few days, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like your kid's really not eating enough iron. And then they'll get the symptoms, right? They'll get the symptoms of, fatigue and irritability, and they can't focus, and their memory is not great, and all these things that they might chalk up to something like ADHD or anxiety or, whatever other issues they're dealing with. And it's like, well, it could be iron as well. Yeah. And a lot of the time they're even experiencing that pica, which is like a craving for non-food, right? They're chewing on ice all the time. And this happened to my daughter as well. Actually, she used to chew on ice quite a bit before we were giving her iron. And
that one's a big one, even with adults. When you say to someone, like even chewing ice, and then the adults think, oh, pica must just be dirt. And you're like, no, it can be, you can eat anything. Yes, there are kids that eat dirt.
Yeah.
But no, but even, ice is probably one of the most common things. And we like to say that if you suspect iron deficiency, to make sure you get your iron tested, for the sole reason that you're going to need a lot more iron than what's on the label to get you back to your healthy levels. And then you supplement to stay in that safe zone.
The maintenance dose.
Yeah, which is big. Also, there's when you do your blood tests, you should also be getting the heavy metals done at the same time. Because if your iron is dropped, there's the iron likes to push out the other heavy metals. So if the iron's low and not pushing out the other ones, then you're going to have the bad heavy metals creeping into your children, and that's a whole other issue.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. It impacts the detox, and that's a big thing with ADHD specifically. Like, we notice there's been some tests done where the detox is impaired, the vitamin D is low, and that's impacting detox. Iron is low, and then their actual their blood-brain barrier, they've done studies showing that it's more permeable, so they're more likely to have these things seeping into their brain that other people wouldn't. And so you want to really watch out for what's circulating in their blood.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And even just bringing it back to if we're not eating it, where are you getting it from? And that's a big one, because people are like, oh no, we should be okay. My daughter hasn't begun menstruation, so she should be fine. But if you're not fine from birth to menstruation, starting menstruation, you're already low, and you need to be looking at it.
And that is the age also. So this happened to me as a teen. That's the age where a lot of teens, with girls in particular, they start to get more independent with their food, and they decide, I'm going to be a vegetarian. And now that's super trendy right now to go vegetarian or even vegan. And I'm like, please don't do that. Please don't do that, because the meat is so much easier to absorb, that iron, right? The animal iron is so much easier. So and then
it's huge.
Start their cycle, and then it's kind of like a.
And we don't even talk about cycles enough with our teenage girls. Yeah. So we may not know if our daughter is having a heavy period. Yeah. So if we don't know, then we can't make sure that we're helping them to not become deficient during that time. So it's even more we need to have the conversations, and it needs to start young, because even we have daughters who are playing hockey, volleyball. They're doing 5 days a week. They may be runners, and then they start menstruation, and then you're losing iron through sweat. You're losing it every month, and it all just adds up.
Yeah, it's true. And I find, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I had something in my brain that I was going to say, and I lost my train of thought. People don't realize how much more iron, women between the ages of 13 and the whole, menstrual cycle years, and realize how much more we need than boys, right? It's twice as much. So it's hard to get it. And I'm actually sending out a newsletter. I was waiting to do it till after that. And my newsletter today, if you're not on my list, you should get on it on my website, because it's all about iron. And I put some sample menus down of what you would need to eat for a child, a either from 8 to 13 or a boy. And it's hard to get that much iron in a day. Even as I was making it, I was like, I don't even know if I could do this on a consistent basis. And this is my job.
I know, I completely agree. It's the same with me. I'm thinking, I make the meals for my kids, and I'm like, okay, I know this is in it and that's it. And then I sit down to eat, and I'm like, oh, well, I need way more than they do. Yeah. So I'm and I have to think to myself, okay, eat more of that and eat more of that. And so, I do supplement with iron, because that is my shortfall. I don't eat enough red meat. I veer more the vegetarian side just naturally, because it's what I like to eat, not for any other reason. So I always have to make sure that I'm staying on top of it, because I like to think if an adult knows what it feels like to be iron deficient, and how tired they are, and their heart palpitations, and they just feel really crappy and crummy all the time. Think about that as a child who can't express themselves enough to explain why they feel the way they feel. And then that's when you get the behavioral side of it come out, and you're like, oh, now I understand why they're melting to the floor, and how everything is just horrible and they can't handle it. Because if you're an adult and you know how you feel, it's just so much worse.
Yeah. And it surprises a lot of people when you learn that iron actually decreases your sleep quality. You know, like it can actually cause insomnia, not having enough iron, which is weird because it makes you tired. When you're anemic, you're tired and you're sluggish, but then you're not sleeping well. And it can cause restless leg syndrome and things like that. So it's like people are just not as informed on what iron deficiency looks like. I mean, there's the typical, like, you know, bags, like dark circle under the eyes, pallor, and, you know, being pale, being breathless and things like that. But there's a lot more to it. And yeah, I think the majority of people are not getting enough iron, and we're not absorbing it as well, right? People are eating all these additives and, you know, flour-based foods that are okay sometimes, but they do, you know, they're not digested particularly well, and then our gut gets impaired, and then we're not absorbing the iron particularly well. So sometimes you're eating enough and you're still not getting it, right? So
you know, I think it's really hard. And, you know, if you are looking at your kids' digestive systems at the same time too, if you have any kind of IBS, or if you're even on more of the scale of having diarrhea all the time, those kids are not absorbing the foods they're eating. So even if they are eating the right foods, they might not be getting anything from it at the same time.
Yeah. I know it's tricky. We've got all this stuff like snowballing, right? We've got the food choices we have these days, like the standard North American diet, and we've got these gut issues that are coming along with it, not enough iron. And then when you don't have enough iron, you don't have an appetite, right? So this happens a lot. I'll see people whose children are very underweight, you know, just like, and they think, oh, they're just skinny little kids, right? That's kind of that's just a skinny kid, you know, like everyone's got to be like, you know, there's always the skinniest kid, right? But when you don't have enough iron, then it affects your appetite. Then you're eating less iron, then you're getting more iron deficient, and then you're less appetite. And it's like this cycle. And I'm like, no, let's start putting some iron in there, at least in supplement form, so that maybe that can boost up their appetite. And this happens quite a bit. It happened with my daughter actually too, that the appetite thing, where pretty much right away when we started iron, probably within a few months, or sorry, a few weeks, not a few months, I noticed that she was eating quite a bit more. So it's, it can have a pretty fast impact too, right?
That's a really awesome point that you brought up, because it's true. The food thing is huge. And we've actually had a number of people send us little testimonials saying, my daughter now eats.
Yeah.
And you know, like, it's just a simple thing. Now she's eating food every day. And you're like, you know, it's such a huge win for a parent when their child actually eats the food that's in front of them. And with our daughter, when she found out that she was iron deficient, sleep was the biggest thing for us. Yeah. So that was the red flag. Every time we went to the nurse practitioner, we kept saying, no, she's not sleeping. No, she's not sleeping. Even when she does sleep, she's not sleeping. She won't nap. She won't anything. And then, after about 2 months of iron, the sleep was dramatically better.
Yeah.
Like dramatic. And I just was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So that was our biggest part was sleep. And if you're not sleeping, the rest of the next day, you're not functioning.
Yeah. And then this is the thing with kids who are anxious, who have a learning difference, or who are, you know, ADHD or autistic, like they're already struggling. Mm-hmm. And then that day, well, we know, like, you're not in a good mood. You're not in a, you're not patient. True. You don't really get things the first time someone says them to you. You're like, what? You're staring into space. Like, it's just, everything just amplifies so much worse. And even, you know, and I always tell people, you know, you should get your iron tested, go get your kids iron tested. It's pretty easy, especially in Canada here. Like, if you say, I don't think my kid eats enough iron, they'll usually just, for it to be safe, right? Because it's covered. But even with our daughter, her iron wasn't actually low. Like, it was on the lower end of normal, but not even on the cusp, I would say. I would say it was like in the third range, you know, like a third of the way up. And I just said to him, you know what, I don't think she eats enough iron, and I gotta give her this. I was like, I'm gonna give her this. It's like the maintenance dose or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, that's fine, because there's a certain limit you can't go over. And
yes.
Like, that's fine. So even if you don't show as, you know,
deficient. Well, and I agree, you know, you have to keep your maintenance. If you're not eating it, where is it coming from? And with our daughter at the beginning, they were like, no, you should supplement no matter what, for this amount of time with this amount of iron. And then when she gets a little bit older, she was quite young at the time, you know, then we're going to start testing her every 3 months, because we found out she was deficient. So we needed to give her significantly more. And now we're down to the maintenance dose again. And they're like, yep, maintenance dose every day. Especially when she's not eating, if she goes 1 week where she's eating tons of foods that are rich in iron, you can lay off it for the week. But they're like, bring it back in as soon as she stops eating again, because just like everything, if you're not eating it,
it builds. Like the lack of it builds up. Mm-hmm. It's true. And yours is so good because it's like not constipating, which is huge. I know like after I had my kids, they gave me iron supplements and it was not good. It was not good for my stomach. I was like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. And then I found the Floridix, which is another liquid. Yeah. But it stained my teeth. And I remember at first before KidStar was invented, I gave Floridix to my daughter and her teeth turned gray. Like it was gross. I was so like, I felt so awful. I was like,
it's funny you say that because there's actually a pharmaceutical brand of iron for kids. And on the box, it tells you how to clean the gray teeth.
Yeah, it's baking soda.
I was reading it going, I'm like, okay. I'm reading this box going, okay, my daughter is 14 months old. We knew we had to give her iron. And I'm reading this going, there's gotta be a better way. And that's really why KidStar started, because I was like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a product my daughter wants to take, that she likes the taste of, and that the ingredients are I'm happy with the ingredients as a mom.
It's not full of junk.
Yeah.
I know, it was gross. I had to scrub her teeth with baking soda. She was about 3 or 4. And
she was like, this is the worst taste ever.
Yeah, you cannot have this in your mouth. And she looked like she was like a person from a 60-year-old from the 1800s. Like,
and you're like, I'm so sorry, honey. Feel like it was for your own good, I swear.
Yeah. Anyway, so now we find a good one, and that's great. So I was going to ask you why you developed KidStar, but then now
that is why. Yeah, it's so I spent about 10 years developing adult women products. I was in the supply chain for my mother's company, Shawna Vanderhaeghe Health Solutions. So I was behind the scenes, sourcing raw materials, getting the finished products onto the shelves. And so I knew what it took to make an amazing women's line. And I knew there were better options. So then when I had my own kids and I kept going to the store going, there's something else. They can use something else. They don't have to use artificial colors and sweeteners. Yeah. They can put more ingredients in this product. It could be better. So after having my daughters and trying to go through that whole thing with them, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to do this because I know I'm not the only parent out there that wants a great quality supplement for their kids.
It's hard. It's hard to find one that's not full, that doesn't have something. Like sometimes they'll be better, but there's usually something. There's either dye or there's like, what is it called? Like titanium dioxide.
Yes.
Like, why are we putting this in? Like, why does it need to be so white?
That's what I said to someone. I was like, it doesn't need to be white.
Have to be blinding you when it comes out. And we're putting this like carcinogen in it to make it look like that. And
it's
still
true.
Shocks me. It still shocks me.
I think the most shocking part is actually when you go for like a Tylenol, and they have 2 Tylenols, one with dye and one's dye free. And I think to myself, just take it out of all of them, please.
It's not like it looks gross. It's not like they're turning it from something that looks like, vomit into something that looks like candy. It literally is just changing the shade of it. Prescription meds too. This has happened with clients of mine and with friends of mine. They've had a child who, because the sensitivity to dye, a lot of people don't know, the dye that causes hyperactivity, that's not specific to ADHD. Like that's just children in general. They did a really big study in Asia with I think it was 1,100 kids or something, and it was both. They did control group. They were like, here's the ADHD folk, and here's the not regular, but typical kids.
Yes.
And it was 30. I think it was 30% of them. It was a certain percentage of them all became really hyperactive after having this high dye. I think it was like a drink, and so that's not specific to ADHD. So they shouldn't be putting that in children's products at all. I mean,
no, they shouldn't. And I think in Europe they have very different regulations than we do. So they have less options for artificial. And even in some things, you can only do it for 4 and up in Europe. So they at least the babies are protected from certain things, and then it starts higher up, and then some things are just banned altogether. Yeah. So we really should be going in that direction because, it doesn't need to be that color, and it doesn't, And we have amazing things in nature that are those colors that we could just make them.
And it does, I find with colorings, it does give children and adults, people in general, like a kind of a false idea of what food should look like. You know, because they're used to this bright, you know, cupcakes and cookies and things like that. And then when you make one with more natural dye, because you can buy dye, it's more expensive, like for natural food dye, but you can buy it at like Whole Foods and places like that. They're like, ugh, like they're like,
it's muted.
Why is my cake so dark? And I'm like, well, that's what food looks like. It's not supposed to be fluorescent. That's not a normal nature thing. But yeah, it's just, it is aggravating. And in Europe, there's quite a few labels, right? They'll actually put labels on things with artificial color, and it'll say like how we have cigarette warnings. It'll say, you know, this product may cause hyperactivity or behavioral problems in children.
Oh yeah, and letting the consumer actually know those things is even better, because then you can make the choice of putting it back because you know what could happen, which is huge.
Yeah, because it happens to us all, right? I grab stuff sometimes and I get it home and I'm like, crap. You know what happened to me last year? Marshmallows. I didn't realize white marshmallows have blue food dye in them. They're not blue. So I'm just like, I looked at it and I'm like, oh my God, no wonder like one of my kids is sensitive to it. I was like, one of them's gone bonkers because I gave them a white marshmallow.
And you're like, no, it is true, because it's hidden in some other things too. So sometimes when you're looking at even at bread and certain bread, the first ingredient is sugar. And you think, it's bread. How is it the first ingredient? Let alone any of the ingredients. But, and in health food supplements, you don't actually have to put in Canada your sugar content on the label. But if it's an ingredient, it goes in the list.
Okay.
So the first 3 ingredients of non-medicinal, it's normally so it goes in ascending order, descending order. And so if it's near the top half, you know that there's quite a bit in the product. Now with food labels, I believe they've changed it recently. I don't know if it's been implemented yet, but every sugar in the product has to be grouped together now. Okay. And so it's like, so if all 5 of them together are like this most ingredient, they go to the top and then they list them all.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Versus before it'd be like sucralose, dextrose, and something else. And then it'd be different spots of the label.
Yeah.
So that's slowly getting there.
Yeah, it gives you a better indication of how much is in there. Yeah, I've noticed on like supplements, you don't have to put the amount of sugar. Some of them do, I see, but
so like dietary supplements in the States, they do have to put the sugar content, and then obviously foods do. But like obviously if there's sugar in it, it has to be on the label, like as an ingredient. But we don't have to put like the percentage or anything at the moment.
Interesting. Yeah. So the iron is great. I also like your vitamin D and the spray. I've never seen this before. Are there other? You just
there's a few.
And you spray it into your mouth.
That one's one of my favorite.
It's like oranges.
It does. The kids. One of my daughters is not a fan of sprays, so it's really funny because it's more like she's anticipating it. So she's like, But we just spray it on a spoon, and then she just licks the spoon. But
that's a good idea.
So you could do either or. But that one's awesome because it's licensed for 0 months and up. And we know in Canada that our babies are supposed to be supplementing with vitamin D from birth. So that one's a great one for the whole family. Yeah,
it's true. And in Canada and in a big chunk of the state, nobody's getting enough vitamin D from like October to April, right? Where do you live in? Are you in Vancouver in BC?
Yes.
I think in BC. You're in Vancouver.
We're in Vancouver.
You're in like the rain half the time, right?
We've been having atmospheric rivers all winter.
Yeah, I know. My in-laws live out there, and I'm like, what is going on out there? But it's like that all the time.
It is.
And if you're not out in the sun, like with a decent amount exposed, then you're not going to get enough vitamin D. It's just not.
And it's same with, we're covering up with sunscreen and we have our hats on because we obviously do not want to get burned from the sun. But at the same time, if you're doing that, you're not getting the vitamin D. So it's a, catch-22.
Yeah. It's like you have to be in t-shirt weather in not direct sun so you don't get burned for at least 20 minutes a day, every day of your life. And it's really not doable for most of us. So
no. And there's so much amazing research on vitamin D that, everybody should be taking it. Everybody in the whole family. And, some people are told to take more. You can get your vitamin D tested too in Canada. And then at that point, if you are deficient, then again, the maintenance dose on the bottle, you'll need to increase.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's good to note. Because, yeah, usually it's just 500 IUs, but if you're deficient, then yeah, your doctor should tell you
To up that dose for a
up
bit.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's fairly new in Canada. I know the States has a different healthcare system, but I know here that you can just, at any point now, I'm pretty sure, at least in Ontario, you can just like ask for a vitamin D test. You can kind of on demand, and I think it's 20 something. You have to pay for it, but
yeah.
it's
Now,
still,
if your doctor thinks you're deficient, I'm pretty sure you
yeah,
do not have to pay for it.
yeah, you wouldn't have to. Yeah.
Which is
So,
huge. And then the other big one for kids is omegas.
oh yeah.
You know, everything with the brain is
Everything with the
important for
brain,
us
yeah.
to be taking. And that one, of course, omegas should be actually before you get pregnant, women should be on their omegas during the pregnancy, during breastfeeding, you know, all the way, so that our kids get a good start too.
Yeah, because that one is for brain development. Well, I guess they're all for brain development, but it's like you can't regrow their brain, right? So you want to make sure that you're really
starting it early.
Right. And
it's good for
as
maintenance
well.
of
Like
the
I
brain.
just want to point out, like vitamin D now, they're doing tons of research now with brain, because people associate that with like getting sick, right? With
They
immunity and bone health, of course, like D and calcium for bone health. But it is like hugely it's hugely related to like ADHD, Alzheimer's, I think Parkinson's for sure, MS, like all these brain and neurological
It's really important. Yeah, no, I agree. And we're going to, like, so much research is now coming out as well, because during the last 2 years, when everyone has been, you know, worried about, obviously everyone's been worried about getting sick. We're now doing all the research on all these ingredients as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what else they see as a benefit while doing the research. That's, you know, an added benefit to the research.
That's true. Yeah. All these sort of, it's like the opposite of collateral damage.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, and guess what? All these patients had this happen. And you're like, yes.
Yes, I did notice a lot of people hospitalized during the pandemic. I think they said 80% of them in Canada were deficient in vitamin D. So not
That's
surprising, because a lot of them were seniors who were
not outside. Yeah. And even our kids, like, think about in the summer, if you're working, your kids are probably in a camp of some sort, or, you know, at home with, you know, someone, and they're just not outside all day long. And so even in the summer, we're hiding away, and our big buildings are shadowing us. And, you know, it happens. It's just the way we're living these days.
Yeah, we're not living in the natural places where humans evolved.
Yeah. There were no skyscrapers back then.
Yeah. We were in the warmer climates, I think, in the original days of humans. But yeah. And with your omegas, I meant to ask you, with your omegas, I meant to bring
I have one behind me. Oh, I have one behind me. Here, I'll grab one.
It's 500, but I've been just taking more.
Yes. So it's 500 of the fish oil per serving, and you get 250 milligrams of DHA in that, and you're getting how much EPA? Oh, 50 milligrams of EPA for the inflammation, and then also there's added vitamin D3 in the product.
Yeah, because that usually fish oil and vitamin D kind of go together like a.
And again, because we're just not eating it and taking it. So we're like, you know, if we can get some in here in the products here and there, you know, make sure that if that's the product you're taking, you're also getting the vitamin D. And then there's also, you can take the standalone D at the same time, and you're not going to be getting too much.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in the winter, like we said, Canada winter, take your vitamin D. But the omegas, can you just take more? Because I usually tell people to take 1,000 milligrams a day. So if I'm using yours, like I kind of swap fish oils. Like honestly, I kind of swap between 2 or 3. I'll give them 4 a day because.
Oh yeah. So if like our pediatrician has our daughter on 2,000 milligrams of fish oil a day. Yeah. So we're told take more. So we're taking more as a family because we need it. But yes, so the label dose is obviously maintenance. So if someone needs more, you just take more. Yeah.
And it's quite common with ADHD for sure, with autism too, for doctors to say like, no, you can take way more than that. So you can always check, and they can even prescribe them sometimes. I know in Europe, I don't know about here actually, I have a client right now in Europe whose doctor like gave her some kind of prescription for a company that makes them for only prescription strength, I guess. It was like 5,000. It was an insanely large amount of omega, and I was like, I told her like, oh my God, did you check with a doctor? And she said, yeah, the doctor gave it to me. So
it's very Yeah. And I know in Canada, I'm hoping, maybe an accountant out there can tell us if you can write off your supplements on your health spend at your tax time, because if you're being told to take something, you know,
Yeah.
you should be able to. So if there's any accountants out there, let us know if that's actually allowed in Canada, because I think it's really important.
That makes sense, because it does add up. And
yeah,
a lot of the time it's replacing a prescription thing, right? A lot of the time people
those are covered for certain X amount, and depending on your income or your extra benefits. So if that is, then we should be able to get our supplements that are prescribed from our doctors
for sure
covered too.
I think the government should just give us all vitamin D for free.
Right? I know, we should have got a little care package. Everyone gets them at the door.
Oh, wow.
If anyone's listening out there, that's what we're recommending. Some care packages from the government.
For your elections coming up in Ontario.
Come on.
All vitamin D.
That's
vitamin D in the mail. Never mind all these other incentives. Yeah, and another thing too, like a lot of kids these days are picky, right? A lot of kids these days are so picky, and they only have a really limited number of foods that they're eating. And it's really hard to get all of your nutrients in. I mean, we're eating processed foods, so they're not being absorbed properly, and we're eating, less fresh fruits and vegetables, which are like the better sources of food, less whole foods, which have the most nutrients in them. And if your kid's only eating like 20 or less foods, I would imagine they're not getting all of their nutrients in, right? It would be really hard unless they're eating the 20 greatest foods, right? If they're just eating
it's so hard.
spinach and kale and salmon all day long. And yeah, it's tough. So I do like to recommend people take a multi. I like how the KidStar multi has the methylated B12 and is it folate? Do you just have folate?
That one just has folate. Yeah, it doesn't have the methylated folate in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, when doing the multi, we were looking at, okay, we need to get all these awesome things in there. We need to make sure that there's enough for everyone to fill the gaps, because you're right. It's so hard to eat everything you need. I have one daughter who will sit at dinner and eat an entire plate of broccolini. That is all she'll eat at that dinner. And I'm looking at him going, I'm so happy you like it. But at the same time, I'm like, we do need some other food groups in this meal. And then I have one kid that'll eat an entire plate of steak, and that is it. So, it's just hard, and you're excited because they're eating. So you're like, this is a win. Yeah. This is a win for me. But yeah, no, getting everything we need is trying.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I think a lot of people have they don't want to supplement because they think, well, I should be getting it. Can we just eat more with food? Can we just eat more of this, eat more of this? And it's like, that's a lot of work, for anyone to take on. I mean, maybe back in the day when moms were home all day, usually like cooking and eating whole foods, and there was no craft dinner and kids weren't expecting pizza every day, then perhaps that would have been easier. But
yeah, I agree with you. It's so hard. And supplementing is not, you're not failing in the food department.
Yeah.
It is purely supplementing. You're supplementing the diet where you need to. And there's no issue at all. Also, sometimes you don't have to. So if you just need to supplement the times when you need to, and you get back up, and then, you're eating different foods, and you're getting what you need, then, you're good. So it's not, there's no shame in supplementing.
Yeah,
I love it. I am a big fan, obviously. And I supplement for myself and my kids. And I'm always telling my husband what he should be taking. Because, it's what we do. Like, I know you're not eating this. You have to take it.
And you see their symptoms, right? Like my got the restless leg syndrome. And I'm like, you haven't been taking that magnesium, have you?
Exactly.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it is a good idea. Like I do find people, they're either in this camp of like, I want to, take the supplements because I can't be bothered with healthy eating, or, well, I'm eating healthy, so I don't need to take the supplements, right? I'm just getting all this from food. And I'm like, well, it's usually both. Like,
it is both.
It's quite unusual to have someone who's like eating all the exact right foods and not supplementing at all, and they're in perfect health and everything's great. Like I do, for most people,
it's rare. Yeah, I completely agree. It's really hard to get everything you need. And then, of course, like you yourself, you're a resource. So you have your social media, and then you also see clients, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For your nutrition program. So there is so many resources out there for parents that they, one step in the right direction is just, reaching out and seeing what they can do.
Exactly. And it is both. Like I don't think I've ever had a client where I didn't recommend a supplement unless they were already supplementing with it. You know what I mean? I've never had someone where I've said like, nah, you're good. Especially
You're like,
with
don't
D,
worry
right?
at all. Yeah. No, it's big.
It's pretty,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a pretty,
Even like now, looking back to when my kids were babies, and being at that 6-month wellness checkup, and they're talking about iron-rich foods, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, we've started, introducing foods, but it's just for fun. She's not even eating any of them.
yeah.
My kids didn't really eat solids until 9 months, maybe really a year. They were actually eating it.
A decent amount.
Right? They were breastfeeding for most of it, and I was really lucky that I was able to breastfeed for as long as I was. But now looking back, I'm thinking they were not getting everything they needed, because my breast milk, obviously the iron's reducing around 6 months. And I don't think I was topping up to do breastfeeding and myself for iron. So at that point, it starts really young.
Yeah, it's true. Now that you say that, my oldest daughter also didn't eat much food until a year, so she definitely should have been supplementing with something.
I know. I like looking back,
with something.
I'm like, they're like, make sure they eat iron-rich foods, and I'm like, oh well, we're offering, but if it doesn't happen, it does not. It's not going to happen.
You can't force them to eat pureed steak at 6 months.
No, you can't. I think I made. I think I tried to do some sort of chicken thing, the way they said to make it, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, I won't even eat that. I'm like, I can't eat that. I'm like, she's not going to eat it.
Or liver. I know a lot of people will try liver as one of the first foods.
Yeah, well, you got to hide that in something.
That's a tough sell.
Yeah, it is. I completely agree. But it's good.
Yeah. So for picky eating, it's always good to supplement, especially for extreme picky eaters.
Yes.
Iron with a multi, with the D, with the fish oil.
Those are big ones. Those like the core. If you need to start somewhere, multi, omega, extra iron. Those are huge.
Yeah. And then with the iron, like if it's a maintenance dose, it's obviously going to be gentler on there.
Yes. And our iron is micronized and microencapsulated. So it's ground down nice and fine, and then it's coated. And that coating actually helps with the digestion. So it goes past the stomach to the small intestine. So it's not being lost in the stomach. That's where you get the constipation and the stomach upset. And because it's coated, that's why you don't get the gray teeth. So the powder is actually white. People are always like, well, how is the tablet white? I'm like, well, the iron is white. And they're like, how is that possible? And it's because of the way it's manufactured that the powder is white. So you're not going to get the black, which is awesome. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And I love that you guys don't have any artificial flavors, artificial colors, any weird anti-caking agents or whitening agents.
Oh, there's so many out there that every time that, and to make clean products, it does take, different ingredients. And sometimes it's a longer manufacturing process. But we're really lucky we have some amazing manufacturers who are definitely up for the challenge. Every time I say take that out, they look at me and they're like, okay. They say okay, and they're like, it'll just be, it just takes a little bit longer on the machine, or they have to do a few extra steps, but they know why. So they're all very happy to. Yeah, they want to make the clean products too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everyone wants to be eating clean products. We just, unfortunately, we can't trust all the vitamin companies to be making clean products, right? A lot of them are owned by large pharmaceutical companies.
They are, yes.
The same sort of fillers that the pharmaceuticals put in their prescriptions and everything like that. So
we always tell people, make sure you're reading the label of everything. Even just to know, turn the products over, read them so you know what you're taking. We find with a lot of packaged foods, there's a lot of the same additives in every one. And so if you're eating a lot of packaged foods, make sure you're looking, because every single product has the same thing in it. You're going to be getting a lot of it versus a one-off when you're just, having a birthday party that's fun. You just eat it because it's fun and it's a great day and you're celebrating. So there's no real issue. But if you're every single day eating the same ingredients, then you should start looking at your packages.
Yeah, because it's going to build up, right? They do the testing on like small amounts, right? Oh, this is safe to eat in small amounts. They're eating it 3 times a day for a whole entire life.
You're like, this is my staple.
That's going to build up at some point inside your liver or affect your, it's going to cause inflammation and everything like this. And it's it's an issue, but that's the world we live in. Yes,
It is. I know. And you know what? We're going back. Like, I feel like we went to packaged foods, and now we're in the transition of clean packaged foods and going back to no packaged foods at all. So I feel like we're kind of in this swing backwards where everybody's looking at the ingredients going, okay, no, we don't need that convenience. We can do something else.
I think you're right. And I think a lot of people, like a lot of the companies, are seeing now like how well the healthier or the cleaner packaged foods are doing. You know, companies like Made Good, you know.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
They started with just those granola bars, and now they sell like 20 different things. They've got cookies, and they've got crackers, and they've got granola, and they've got like all this stuff. I'm like, this company blew up out of nowhere because everyone was like, oh, this doesn't have weird like ingredients I've never heard of, and coloring and additives,
and it still tastes amazing.
And it's
like
good,
that's the biggest part, you know. If you can take all those things out of it and it still tastes amazing, then why put them in it?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the biggest one.
Yeah, and I do agree. And actually, when I was a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when I was in nutrition school, and I remember saying to my husband, I feel like I'm here at the right time. I feel like things are shifting, and people have gotten sick of all these preservatives and, you know, everything bogging down our systems, and we're swinging back to healthy. And he was like, okay. But it's true. It's true.
It's so true. Oh, we have a question. Yes. We have 3 stores that ship to the States. So Vitamart, VitaSave, and Healthy Planet all ship to the States for us. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, Katie was mentioning. Katie commented on something today, I think, in my.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
My feed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we actually have a lot of followers on our site that are American, and we've been trying to we're working our way to getting down to the States. It just takes a few extra steps compared to the Canadian market. So we're on our way.
Especially with supplements, right? I mean, it's one thing to just ship food or whatever, but I know with anything that's got to be like approved by a
so the new labels and we have awesome requirements in Canada. Like, our system is really great. Everything's approved, and, you know, we go through a stringent cycle, and then our labels are away, and everything's, you know, done a certain way for our NPNs, which is our natural health product numbers in Canada. And then you go to the States, and it's a completely different system. So we're just like, you know, we have to navigate it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of that's the big issue with supplements. And there's some supplements from the States that I used to get years ago. And I've called them and said, like, why can't I get this anymore? And they're like, oh, Health Canada doesn't approve it up there anymore for non-professional. Like, it had to go through a naturopath or something. And I'm like, oh.
It happens a lot. And then, of course, the FDA has ingredients that they approve and don't approve for certain things. So then you know, it's approved in Canada with the research and on our NPN because we have a licensing program. And in the States, they're like, oh, no, that ingredient, we can't sell it. So, you know, it's even though we're based, you know, step across the border, which is very different.
It was the same, but it gets tricky. I know. Yeah. So hopefully you can get, you know, expanded down there. So you're selling it in stores and whatnot. Because
fingers crossed.
I think the majority of my followers are American. I'm pretty sure, like, the majority of my clients are. So I imagine.
Same with us. Yeah, it's big. It's big, and, you know, there's. We that is our next step. So we're very excited for when that does occur.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Did you want to talk about anything else? I think we covered all the basics.
I think we're doing awesome. I think we're good. I know. I could hear someone on the other side of the door. Actually, and Shawna, you have a promo code on the KidStar website.
Oh, that's right.
Well, Shawna 15. And then, of course, you have your newsletter. We also have a newsletter that we do for promos and activities that we're doing or trade shows.
Oh,
so people can be on both.
Yeah. You have yours. And my newsletter, like I said today, I'm going to send this out in about half an hour. It's all about like what a day's worth of iron looks like for the average.
Well, I'm going to sign up for that because, you know, I'm like, I would like to see this in food because it's big. It's hard to do it.
And it's hard. It is hard. Yeah. And also, like we said, the plant ones don't absorb as well. So even if you're getting all this, which is just like the minimum amount, unless you're absorbing it all perfectly, it's going to be a tough go. But
I completely agree.
Yeah. Anyways,
that's perfect. Yeah. Well, if there's any questions, we're both around. So just, you know, make sure you pass them along and
So yeah, the
Hopefully it does
promo
soon.
code for, I think it's 15% off and free shipping. Is that what the
I
Shawna
believe so.
promo
Yes,
code?
I believe so.
You'll get 15% off those KidStar
For
things
in
for
Canada.
Canadians, yeah, because they can't ship to the States until the FDA lets them.
It is true. So, but yeah, we haven't figured that part out for us, but we do have some awesome online retailers that ship for us.
Yeah.
So
great. So yeah, if anyone has questions about this kind of stuff, just send them to me or send them to Caitlyn. I always have to tell people I don't work for KidStar. I'm like, I recommend them all the time. I'm like, I don't work for them. They're not paying me to make vitamins. I just take them. So
yeah. Well, yeah. So I have my own blog that is This Healthy Mom, and then Instagram is This Healthy Caitlyn. But you can find me at KidStar. That's where I'm always at. So if there's any questions, we're here.
And mine is just mine, Shawna Hughes Nutrition. That's me. I don't have a private account because I didn't even know what Instagram was till I had this business.
It is the same with me. They're like, you have to post all the time. I'm like, oh, this is a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's a whole other world.
Yeah.
But it's exciting. Yeah. So hopefully we'll have some trade shows back east that we get to connect with. And otherwise, we'll keep doing this.
Yep. Okay, great. So have a nice, what time is it over there? It's almost noon.
Almost lunchtime for us.
Yeah. Have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. You
That's
too.
it for me today. Sending out that newsletter. I'm going off for the day.
I know. I was like, oh, dinner time soon, right?
Yeah. It's just about 2 here. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got to get my kids at 3. So.
You're like almost done. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Shawna. It was awesome. And happy to do it anytime.
Yep, we should do it again.
That sounds great.
We'll collect questions.
Yes.
And on another
that sounds
Q&A.
perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.